Meanwhile, protesting farmers have resumed their protests in an attempt to enter the national capital from the Shambhu border between Punjab and Haryana to press for their demands, which include a legal guarantee for MSP and loan waivers. The protesting farmers were stopped after walking a few kilometers and were met with tear gas shell firing by the police 2 days ago. A Jatta of 101 farmers had begun to march towards Delhi from their protest site at the Shambhu border, but they were stopped a few meters away by multi-layered barricading erected by the Haryana security personnel. Now, the farmers called off their protest after several protesters were reportedly injured in tear gas shelling by the police at the Shambhu border. Joining us at this point is Indra Shekhar Singh, Agri Policy Analyst. Also with us is Dr. Sharad Kohli, Senior Economist. We have Ellen Rao, former DCP Special Delhi Police, also with us live. Let me begin with you first. Ellen Rao, what do you make of this face-off between police and farmers at the Shambhu border? Tear gas shelling, injuries for the farmers, and of course the face-off, the standoff continuing.
Yes, this is what is required by the police there, because they are following the instructions of the government, as well as they are asking for the identity of the persons who are being sent for talk to Delhi from Punjab via Haryana. So, and if they are during daytime they were protesting, and the police had to resort to some water cannons and the tear gas cells when they were not adhering to the orders of Delhi police. This is the usual practice at the site in such incident, when the gathering is there, and first they are being warned by the police, and then if they are not adhering to the instructions of the police, then they have to resort such type of activities to stop their to stop these protesters to go ahead in that case. I think now they have returned back, and the situation is under control, and the police is also having a sigh of relief. Let us, what is their action plan is in future, that depends upon what they are planning now. But at least I must say that the protesters definitely they are at their liberty to to send their demands to the central government and the agriculture minister. That is their fundamental right. But I think that that should be done in peaceful manner and as per law. And when after getting the permission from the central government and the Delhi police itself, because without permission they should not come from Punjab via Haryana, and that's the reason when they were stopped by the Haryana police at Shambhu border in Ambala. Let us now only wait and watch what is their further strategies there for the farmers.
Indra Shekhar Singh, how are you viewing this face-off at the Shambhu border, this volatile situation there, and which way is this now headed?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. I think this volatile situation can easily be diffused if tomorrow the Agriculture Minister Shivraj Chauhan, who's actually a very mature politician and who's done quite well for farmers of Madhya Pradesh, actually moves to Shambhu border and meets the farmers there and there only. It will kill off any anti-sentiments towards the government. Last time, Narendra Singh Tomar failed to do that. Right now, we see the Vice President jumping about with no constitutional power, trying to even undermine Shivraj Singh. I think the real role is that today, right now, of Shivraj Singh moving to the border and settling this via peaceful talks. We have to keep in mind that first, 101 farmers, who were actually, some of them were elderly, were only marching, while rest of the farmers were at the background. The farmer groups were controlling them, and yet they were shelled with tear gas. And we have photos on Twitter which are emerging that these were not just the regular tear gas. This is some new kind of tear gas that's been introduced. Now, I'm not blaming the police, because they're also following orders, and it's their duty to work and stop this if the government tells them to. But if we look at the systemic problem and the source of the problem, it can all be killed with simple, peaceful conversations. The protest at the Shambhu border has been there since February.
The police says that they had to check identity cards of the protesting farmers and also their permission letters, and only then would they be allowed to proceed forward. They claim the farmers did not produce this.
Uday, I feel that the police, we should not bring in the police, because they are right now, they are following orders only. And it's not basically the onus is not on the police officials right now. If the government tells them, hey, listen, you have to check their papers and reject half of them, the police will have to comply. So let's not blame the police. It's actually it's a political problem and an agrarian problem, which can be settled if there is less use of violence from the police side and from the farmers' side. If the government comes down and talks with them, why are we even sacrificing our uniformed men and women for these dangerous tasks? That's my question. If the Shivraj Singh organizers sends the message that yes, I'm going to have a Janta Darbar, I'm going to listen to you, I'm going to call all the farm groups, that's the way of a peaceful resolution. If you send in the police with guns, then the farmers will get agitated, then the police will get agitated, and it will lead to a bigger problem. Why are we risking the lives of uniformed men here when things can be settled peacefully with just phone conversations or just actually having face-to-face meetings? Why is Shivraj Chauhan
Sharad Kohli, come in here on the situation, the standoff. What do you make of this face-off between farmers and police? It's now the fourth attempt today by farmers to reach Delhi to march to Parliament, and of course we've seen how their march has been stopped repeatedly at the Shambhu border. How are you viewing this?
Good evening, Uday. I partially agree to Inder Shekhar that if the central government headed by Shivraj Singh Chauhan, who's the agriculture minister, and he's handled the farming community while he was the chief minister for a very long time in Madhya Pradesh. He's handled it very well. He's known to be a very good negotiator. He's known to be a people's person. So I see no reason why intervention by the agriculture minister himself would solve the problem. Whereas I disagree with the fact that police should not intervene because you cannot allow anarchy. We saw what happened at Red Fort a few years ago. We saw a bunch of people who reached Red Fort and they hoisted the national flag, and there was a whole lot of chaos, which the citizens of Delhi, the people crossing the border. I think we should have some consideration for people crossing the border. I had to go there Tuesday on some urgent work, which I have cancelled now because knowing that there's going to be a chaotic situation. There are children going to school. There are people who go for their jobs. They're businessmen. There's a lot of trade happening between the states. So this kind of sabotage of the whole border, I think, causes anarchy. And I think no government would allow anarchy. There has to be peaceful talks. And I think farmers should try and convey whatever they want to convey in a peaceful manner. However, if their message of peace is not reaching the government, then through this show, I would urge the representatives of the government also to come forward. And there's another point I would like to make, Uday, that these 101 farmers, we also need to verify that how big a farming community are they representing? Is this a representation of rest of the country's farmers? Is this a representation of the entire northern India, Punjab, Haryana, and surrounding state farmers? Or is it just a bunch of farmers who are driven by political motives? Because there is elections in Delhi and they're coming from Punjab. We know Punjab is managed by Aam Aadmi Party. Delhi has Aam Aadmi Party who wants to come back to power. So is there any political motive? We also need to find out, because if the government senses that this is coming out of a political motive, then I think the whole agrarian cause gets shadowed, I would say. It gets faded out. So I think that is the whole thing, and this will come out of talks. If the talks are legitimate, if the demands are legitimate, Uday, if the demands are something which can be met by negotiations, why not? But if the demands are absolutely impractical, if you're asking for moon, then obviously it is beyond the capacity of the government to do so. I think I'll have a very fair view from both ends, and this should be held peacefully, undoubtedly with due consideration. I would like to reiterate Uday, that a lot of commuters have already started facing problems. People who are staying nearer to the borders, who cross the state every day, they have started facing problems, and I think this should be avoided at all costs, Uday.
Okay, let me in fact take that across to Ellen Rao as well. Now, Ellen Rao, as I said earlier, this is the fourth attempt by farmers, of course, to march to Delhi. It's resulted in further clashes today once again. What is the solution of this standoff, of this crisis?
Yes, really it's a fourth attempt that the talks were not fulfilled, and the reason of this maybe because of the forthcoming elections in Delhi, as Dr. Kohli rightly said, that these are the farmers from the Punjab where the Aam Aadmi Party is there, and that's the reason why the Haryana violent situation, when they were allowed, the farmers were allowed as per MOU, but they violated the MOU also, and they came to the Red Fort. That's the reason the apprehension of police in Delhi is also there. That's why the Delhi police wants that once they first have a permission to come to Delhi. And secondly, and your question about fourth time, that all depends upon the amicable talks between the genuine former leaders and the central government or agriculture minister. And that talks should be very reasonable also. The demands should be reasonable, but if the demands are not reasonable, which are beyond the control of central government, or these are not feasible to implement, that is another thing. And it's only the reason that the talks are not fulfilled and the farmers' demands are not fulfilled because of that. Because the demands are some demands are illogical and impractical also. So let us see what the government and the agriculture minister thinks about it, how to sort it down, how to curtail this situation at this moment. Uday.
All right, let me take that back across to Indrashekhar Singh. Indrashekhar Singh, surely there are better ways of getting your point across to the government by the farmers than holding a highway hostage. We saw, of course, the situation that had developed at the Tikri and Singhu borders a few years back. Movement was affected, logistics were affected, and the national capital felt that they were held hostage. That's something perhaps that the government wants to avoid, a deja vu of, which is why perhaps this standoff now is ensuing both at the Ghazipur and at the Shambhu borders.
So I would frame the question in a different way. Having the demands of the farmers have not changed since the farmers left Delhi's borders. Okay, they're still asking for a fair price. The demand for MSP basically can be boiled down to having a fair price for all crops across the nation. I would think that no farmer in this country would disagree that they should be given a fair price for their crops. Now the question can be asked, the government, having learnt its lesson, Modi ji personally came and said that, you know what, we were unable to make this possible, so we are taking the laws back. There must be something about it, right, that he was supposed to take it back. Now, why couldn't the government perform using its MSP committee, which it had formed, telling the farmers that we will bring about something to talk about MSP, and that where are the deliberations of that committee? 2 years have passed, 3 years have passed. Why is that committee never met? Why did the government suspend talks with the SKM after January of 2021, 2022? Why did that happen? So you're giving farmers enough material to attack you back with. Now, of course, I'm not saying it's only the farmers are right, or only the government is right, or they both are wrong. I'm saying they have to meet somewhere in the middle. So that.
But what about the means? The means adopted. The demands may be fair, as you're saying. What about the means adopted? What about the means adopted by trying to hold a highway hostage?
See, Uday, I've been to Shambhu border myself, and I know how much of a hostage situation it is. It is not like the big thing which happened in Singhu border or what happened in Delhi. This is a very small protest compared to what was happening in Delhi. And why should we take away the right to peaceful civil disobedience from any citizen of this country? And I think the officer on the panel also agreed that right to protest is a fundamental right. And if the government is not listening and not talking, every citizen has the right to protest peacefully. Now, whether you can say that why are you protesting? Well, because the government.
So every citizen has the right to protest, Sharad Kohli. Why try and block protests in a democracy? Your response to that? Also, Sharad Kohli, a fair price, of course, is needed for crops, but is a legal guarantee of an MSP something that can practically be implemented?
I'll come to the latter part of your question first. Being an economist, Uday, if we provide a legal guarantee, although I would say that government is gradually moving in that direction, maybe not jumping onto that conclusion. You see, the inflation has been a matter of concern for the whole country. Food inflation is beyond 6%. Even the governor of Reserve Bank of India could not pull back the repo rates because the food inflation, the price of a thali, the vegetarian thali, has gone up phenomenally. This has impacted people across the country, including the farmers' families as well. The prices have shot up. It is not that a farmer can grow everything on his own. He's got to be consuming other food item and groceries as well. So I think the moment you jump on to an MSP, which then fuels inflation, if you provide a price which fuels inflation, it has this is a double-edged sword. On one side, the farmers would be happy, but on the other side, the inflation might go out of control. So we cannot just, so we have to strike a balance. There has to be a balance between the farmers getting the fair share of the effort, all the labor that they're putting in. They have to get their fair share. On the other hand, we need to keep the economic angle in mind. Otherwise, government would have agreed. It's as simple as that. You demand X price. Government says, okay, fine, do it. Why is the government not doing? Beyond the fact that government has to make purchases on the prices, I think we should also not forget that these products, this farm produce has to ultimately reach the common man. So if you're getting something at 50 rupees, after MSE, if it becomes 100, 125, I think the people will not be able to afford, where the farmer would be happy. What about the rest of the people? So I think government has to strike a balance. I'm not trying to take sides of the government. I'm just trying to project the economic angle to it. As far as the government is concerned, I think a definite attempt must be made to try and resolve it amicably. Talks should be held. But I have a question here, that do the farmers, before they start this march, is a message given to the government in a peaceful manner, in a congenial atmosphere, or do they jump on to doing a protest? Whereas the right to protest, I agree, is a fundamental right. But you cannot jump on to protest straight away. However, what Inder said, has some substance in it, because if there was a promise made by the committee, or the committee was supposed to, or the committee's findings were supposed to be implemented, then why have they not been implemented? I think, so there is some answering to be done from the government, some answering to be done by the farmers also. But at the same time, I would say that agriculture in India per se has been a loss-making proposition. And the irony is,
right,
60 to 70% of our population
okay,
depends on
let's take that back to Indrashekhar Singh. Indrashekhar Singh, two quick points that you have to respond on. One, if you're saying yourself that it's a smaller protest that's happening at the Shambhu border, how representative are these protesting farmers of the agrarian class of India? Are all of them upset, or is this just a small section which some say are motivated as well? Secondly, please respond on the legal guarantee for MSP. How practically achievable is that on ground? While a fair price, of course, is needed and no one can disagree with that, is a legal guarantee a pragmatic, achievable solution?
So there, first of all, the farmers may only be from Punjab and Haryana, but the cause that they are fighting for is a national cause. And that's the problem of farmers all over. And just to give you some stats for the viewers, if they look at rural consumption in India, over the past 2-3 years, they'll find that it's falling. If you look at rural incomes, they've been falling. So rural economy in India is deeply hit. And with the added pressure of inflation, many people are being pushed towards malnutrition, and there is a heavier demand on MGNREGA. Now, moving to your next point, because I know we have very little time, we need to have, for example, if a daily wage laborer has a legally guaranteed minimum wage, that below which you cannot pay them below that, because that's indignified human living. Similarly, in agriculture, there needs to be a mechanism. I will not say that, of course, this needs to be through a stakeholder process, right? This needs to be done through it. But we need to have respect for dignity and right to livelihood for everybody. You cannot have an economy that's eating from the sweat and labor from one class and giving it to the other, and then saying, you know what, we have to eat you because we have to stabilize the economy. That's not the model that India, as a wish guru, as entering the Amrit Kal, should actually adopt. We should have some amount of equal distribution of labor and equal distribution of the profits of an economy which is nationalistically driven. Now, if you start doing this and you start eating your lower classes, you start pushing your lower classes economically and physically into the dungeon, there will be civil unrest, there will be rural problems, which India is already experiencing in the form of drug addiction, crimes, and other things. So there is a real opportunity that the government has to improve agriculture by investment in rural sectors through agriculture and through an MSP-like program. I think with that, Modi government can actually create a legacy in agriculture which will last for many, many generations. They just have to think and have the intention of solving the problem.
Ellen Rao, you said talks are needed, but what should be, the discussion in those talks to lead to some sort of solution?
In those talks, practical aspects of the situation, practical aspects of the problem should be discussed, and that should be open-minded talks. Nobody should be rigid on these things, and then I think the fair price topic, the fair price of any product, which will be agreeable with all farmers, accept the legalized MSP, because there is a problem in legalized MSP, because it is impossible to implement. That's why that things must be conveyed to the farmers leaders during the talk, and the government should also have sympathy about the problems of the farmers, and whatever have been guaranteed to the farmers during the election campaign, and during the past talks being conducted by the earlier agriculture minister. All these things should be considered in tandem, and then consolidated efforts should be made to diffuse this situation, because this situation definitely will be aggravating to the common man who are passing through the these borders. That is a great difficult to everyone, a great difficult to considering these things, that the talks should be in a very cordial manner, and that should be agreeable to both the parties, with a open mind consideration of the problem and the solutions at a time. Uday.
All right. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us. We've run completely out of time.